Hi everyone and welcome. Today what we're going to be making is what I like to call a cherry blossom pendant, and I use that term because of the type of beads that I use, being sort of a collection of pinks and reds and clears. But if you wanted, you could use whatever type of beads you wanted, but basically what I'm going for is almost like a cherry blossom branch in this particular design. So what we're going to need is we're going to use our 20 gauge wire to make a circle shape, our base. I'm going to use about 10 inches of a 20 gauge wire. To attach our beads onto our 20 gauge wire, we're going to use some 26 gauge wire, and I'm going to use about 100 centimeters or 40 inches of that. And then what we need is just a collection of 2mm beads that we're going to use to create our branches. So I'm using a collection of pinks, reds and clear colours, but you can use whatever you want. Certainly 2mm round beads work best for this particular project. So we'll start by making our frame, and what I'm going to do is just make a circle shape out of my 20 gauge wire. If you're not comfortable doing that with your hands, you can shape it around something. A jam jar lid or anything sort of circular works really well for doing that. But what I'll do is I'll just shape it with my hands, and then in one end what we're going to do is create a loop in our structure just by bending our pliers over like that. Now what I want to do is wrap around the base of my loop. Now because we're using 20 gauge wire, we don't need to be too concerned about wrapping these wires together because they will hold their shape really well. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my pliers to hold these two lengths of wire together, and I'm going to bend the other length of my 20 gauge wire around the base of my loop. Squeeze those two together just to make sure that we've got a closed off circle. So you can see that's what the other side looks like. So what I'll do is I'll just draw that around. So I've gone around almost twice around the base of my loop. I'm just going to trim my excess wire off with my wire cutters. I should mention as well, all you're going to need for this is some pliers and some wire cutters for this particular project. So we'll just neaten up our loop a little bit there, and we'll just sort of form our circle a little bit with our hands. You could use any sort of shape you wanted. I think a circle works really well. Sort of neaten that up. This will sort of go in and out of shape as we're doing our beaded pattern around the edge, but you can just use your fingers at the end just to put it back into shape. What we're going to do now is anchor our wire onto our 20 gauge wire, and I'm just going to do that by wrapping it around about 10 or so times. Okay, so you wrap your wire just around the base wire. I've got about 12 times there. And then to give it a nice neat finish, we're just going to squish our loops all up together just so that they're all sitting nicely. I might go around just a couple more times. It is a bit difficult to work with wire in this length. I haven't cut my 40-inch wire, but if you're finding it difficult, you certainly can cut that length of wire and reattach your wire at any stage, because it is a little bit, can get a little bit tangled. I'm just going to cut that end off there. Okay, so we might make one little branch at the top here. So what I'm going to do is grab 3 little beads. I'll go for 2 pinks and a bit darker colour in here. I'm just threading those 3 onto my wire at one time. Okay. It does have a couple of kinks in it with me wrapping it, so what I might actually do is cut this wire off. What you find is that with working with smaller beads, if you have any kinks in your wire, it might not go over those kinks. I'll just cut that off there. And we'll anchor our wire again at another time. Okay. So we'll try again just by adding 3 beads onto our wire. I'm going to pull those right down to the end. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my wire out probably just about a fingertip length, just like that, away from my base. And I'm going to bend my wire over so that I'm pushing these 3 beads together. I'm going to join those 2 lengths of wire up again. I'm just twisting those 2 wires around with my fingers. So you can see there we've got a little branch happening there. What I might do, because it's a little bit longer out than what I'd anticipated, is just put another 1 bead towards the base. I don't want to draw it out too far from my main wire, so if you can see what I've done is I've gone off my little branch just a little bit this time. It's going to twist my 2 wires together back towards the base, and then when they're back together, just continue twisting back towards my main structure and just push those 2 out just like that. I'm going to continue wrapping around my base now. So just keep wrapping around the main 20 gauge wire and then pushing your wires, all your loops all together, just to give it a really nice neat finish. Just do that every so often so they don't get too out of control. Okay, what I might do now is just do another little smaller branch. So I'm going to grab 3 beads, go for pink, then red, then pink this time. So I'm not going to draw my wire out quite as far this time. I'm just going to draw those wires out a little bit, again bend them over, and then twist back towards our frame. If you find that you've gone further than you want to, you can always twist that wire around the frame a bit. Okay, so you can see our little shape is starting to come together. Alright, I'm starting to come to the end of, I haven't got a huge amount of wire left, so I might just do one more small branch and then we can start off with a new bit of wire. So what I'm doing is just adding 3 beads onto my wire. It's really a matter of sort of judging as you go as to whether or not how far you should draw your branches out, just working out what sort of space there is so that not all of your branches aren't sort of clogging up one area. And the great thing about is that you can move these little branches around as you go so that you can work out where you want them to sit. So I'll just do another branch here. So just pushing those 2 wires together and twisting back towards my main branch. Just put another little branch coming off. Do one more before I get back to my main structure. Okay, and then we just keep twisting until we get back to our main section. What I like to do is do quite a few small branches, or a couple of small branches, and then do one large main branch. So that's probably the next one we'll do. So I'll just keep wrapping this around. You can see we're nearly at the end of our wire. So we'll reattach a new piece of wire. Just trim the end off there so there's no little spiky bits getting in the way. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll grab my wire and just re-anchor it onto this. I'm just going to wrap it around a few times. Okay, and then once you've wrapped it around, just make sure you push it up so that it's joining up to the old section of the wire. Okay. Now what we'll do one of our bigger branches. So with this particular design, what I'm doing is I'm just really going to have branches coming from this side because I want that idea of a tree, but of course you could have them coming around from anywhere you want in your structure. I'm just going to add 3 more beads onto my wire. So pull it out. I'm going to go a little, this is going to be a fairly large branch I think, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go almost to the other side of my design. I'm just going to twist those 3 together just there. And as I go back, I'm just going to do a few little branches coming off. So I want one coming up on this side, so I'm just going to grab a few little beads. So I'm just going to pull one of my wires off away from the main wire, push those 3 beads together and then twist to get back to our main wire. And then keep twisting down back towards our main structure. And as I do, I'm going to do another branch coming off my main branch. So again, we're just going to push those 3 beads together, twist the wire around, get back to our main branch and keep twisting back towards the center. So you can see how it's sort of coming together now, like we've got our little branches coming off there. I'll keep going, just putting a couple more branches. You can do 1 or 2 beads or 3 beads as you go down. You can have branches coming off branches, coming off branches. It's totally up to you and whatever you feel like doing with it. And keep twisting, twisting, twisting. Okay, now you can see I've travelled quite a far away from where this is supposed to be, so I better get back up that way. Okay, so we're sort of back to our back to our 20 gauge frame. Just keep wrapping my wire around. So just keep pushing those loops together, just to make sure we get a nice neat finish. So what I'll do is after I finish wrapping the rest of this wire around, I'll do a bit of an assessment and work out where I want any more branches coming from. If I do want any more, I might be happy with the way that it looks. It's really just a matter of going until you're happy with the design. Okay, just trim the little edge off that. So and as I was saying, you can really sort of twist these around just to get them sitting where you want them to sit. Just make sure you've got some balance to your design. So what I might do is I might do another little one down there, and then I think we'll call it a day on this particular design. So what I'll do is I'll grab a little bit more wire. Okay, so I'll keep going with that, and we'll check in when we're nearly there. Okay, and we are back. So all there is left for us to do now is to put our design onto a chain. So what I've done is I've gone around with my 20 gauge wire up to about 26 gauge wire, sorry, up to about this point, and I didn't go any further than that. But if you wanted to, you could do around the whole structure, or you could even add some little branches coming off there if that's what you want to do. So you can see with that one there, this is slightly smaller. This was done with a 7-inch piece of 20 gauge wire to go around. So what I did was I went round the entire length of the structure with my 26 gauge wire, and I added on a little branch on this side as well. So you could certainly do that if you wanted to, but for this one I'm going to leave it there. What you need to do is keep melding it with your fingers just to get it back into shape, because it will go out of the shape while you're wrapping your wire around it. But that's your pendant, and when you're done, just slip it onto a chain or you can add it to some other components if you wanted to make something a little bit different. And there you have it. Okay everyone, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Look forward to seeing you next time.